Join us here on KBC Channel 1. You're just in time for BizCheck, and we are coming to you live from Kenya's capital, Nairobi. My name is Betty Kiptum, and Lensa Odingo is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. Now we start off with the latest on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where early this morning, Kenyan time, Russian troops launched their anticipated attack on Ukraine as the Russian President Vladimir Putin cast aside international condemnation and sanctions, warning other countries that any attempt to interfere would lead to consequences you have never seen. Those are his own words. Now, big explosions were heard from before dawn in Kiev, Kharkiv and Odessa in Ukraine, as world leaders decried the start of a Russian invasion that could cause massive casualties and topple Ukraine's democratically elected government. I will run that again. Now, Russian troops launched their much-anticipated attack on Ukraine early Thursday morning as President Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, cast aside international condemnation and sanctions, warning other countries that any attempt to interfere would lead to consequences you have never seen. Those are his own words. Now, big explosions were heard before dawn in Kiev, Kharkiv and Odessa in Ukraine as world leaders decried the start of a Russian invasion that could cause massive casualties and topple Ukraine's democratically elected government. That is the latest on the Ukraine and Russia conflict. We shall, of course, be following up on that story and keeping you up to date both online and in our subsequent bulletins. Now, we come back here in studio where we want to have a conversation about housing the vulnerable. The vulnerable meaning low-income earners who probably may not afford the traditional housing options that there are. The Habitat for Humanity Kenya National Director Ruth Odera is with us on set and is ready to have this conversation. Thank you, Ruth, for joining us.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. So let's just start here. Who are the vulnerable when you talk about housing the vulnerable?
Thank you, and thank you, viewers. When we talk about the vulnerable, we talk about very poor households. We are talking about, those people who cannot even afford to put, sometimes food on the table. They cannot afford to, build houses on their own. We are talking about widows and widowers. Sometimes we are talking about, very old people, 80 years and above. Maybe taking care of, orphans and children. Sometimes you are talking about child-headed households where the parents have died and, sometimes they've left children and one of the children become the head of the households. And we are talking about, just very poor people. And when we are talking about poor people, vulnerable poor people, we are talking about charity cases. We are not talking about people who earn, possibly they earn like $200 a day or less. Some of them do not earn, but also we are talking about people who work, they do manual jobs, like they work in farms for people, they work in houses for people, those who can afford, those who are strong enough. Not all of them are strong. We are talking about, some of them are disabled, like some of them are blind, some of them are physically challenged. So those are the type of people that we talk about when we are talking about vulnerable communities and vulnerable groups.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to put this into context, 43% of Kenya's population lives under $1 a day. That is running into the millions, considering we are about 45 million people. What options are there in terms of housing? And let's even start here. Yeah. What is the definition of decent housing?
The definition of decent housing, according to UN Habitat, and even according to Habitat for Humanity, is a house that is, like the plinth area. The square footage is enough, to take care of
the United Nations. I started this meeting of the Security Council addressing President Putin and telling him from the bottom of my heart, stop your troops from an offensive to Ukraine, give peace a chance, because too many people have already died. During the meeting, President Putin announced a special military operation in the Donbass and required the Ukrainian troops to lay down their arms. So in the present circumstances, I must change my appeal. And I must say, President Putin, in the name of humanity, bring your troops back to Russia. In the name of humanity, do not allow to start in Europe what could be the worst war since the beginning of the century, with consequences not only devastating for Ukraine, not only tragic for the Russian Federation, but with an impact we cannot even foresee in relation to their consequences for the global economy in a moment when we are emerging from the COVID, and so many developing countries absolutely need to have space for the recovery, which would be very, very difficult with the high prices of oil, with the end of exports of wheat from the Ukraine, and with rising interest rates caused by the instability in international markets.
That's the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. Well, the Ukrainian ambassador to the UN was involved in a tense standoff there with his Russian counterpart.
It's too late, my dear colleagues, to speak about de-escalation. Too late. The Russian president declared a war on the record. Should I play the video of your president? Ambassador, shall I do that right now, or you can confirm it? Do not interrupt me, please. Thank you.
Then don't ask me questions when you are speaking. Proceed with your statement.
Anyway, you declared the war. It is the responsibility of this body to stop the war. So I call on every one of you to do everything possible to stop the war. Or should I play the video with your president declaring the war? Thank you very much.
I must say that I thank the representative of Ukraine for his statement, and the questions, I wasn't planning to answer them because I've already said all I know at this point. Waking up Minister Lavrov at this time is not something I plan to do. He said the information that we have will be something we provide. And this isn't called a war, this is called a special military operation in the Donbass.
Well, with me in the studio, our news reporter, Mark Lebel. Mark, let's just go right back to where this began in the last few hours, 3 a.m. GMT, about 5 a.m. Kiev time. Tell us what happened.
Well, President Putin made a surprise address on television announcing a military assault in the east of the country, in the east of Ukraine. I should just say that we're just hearing that the Luhansk separatists in those two areas that we've been focusing on over the last few weeks, which are under Russian-backed control.
Buying clothing. And the busy highway that goes in and out of Kiev, it's a 10-lane motorway, is effectively jammed at the moment as people try and get to safety. But the picture we're getting beyond the capital is something quite larger scale. If we just go a little bit out, the Air Force, the Ukraine's Air Force, say they were repelling a Russian attack on a military site there and on an airport. Then we've had the border agency describe a shelling, an artillery attack on the border to the south, where Crimea is currently annexed. There are military vehicles crossing the border there. We've had troop movements by Russia to the southwest of Ukraine, and then we've had explosions and the border being breached in the northeastern city of Kharkiv, as well as in Luhansk, that region where Russian separatists occupy certain areas there. We've also had reports of Belarusian troops joining Russian troops and going across the border from the north, which is just a 3-hour drive from here. So all of these things represent something much larger scale, something that has been a worry for some time.
And diplomacy, James, attempted right up to the last minute. We hear
Yes, I think that's representative of the diplomatic efforts running out of road.
Well, those are the latest. That's the latest from the Ukraine-Russia conflict. We are following up with the BBC, and we shall be bringing you the latest. But of course, quite some diplomacy there. We heard from the UN Security Council. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres there was pleading with Russia not to attack Ukraine, or rather for Vladimir Putin to just withdraw his troops from Ukraine. But of course, that is a story of the past, because this morning Russia started the attack on Ukraine. A number of towns, including the capital Kiev, has already witnessed some attacks, and we shall be following up. President Biden, the US president, is set to give a press briefing on just what sanctions will be meted against Russia, considering that some had already been meted against Russia by the US and the United Kingdom, and we shall be seeing just what the West has to say about the attack that has happened on Ukraine by Russia. Now, here back in studio, we were having a conversation about matters housing the vulnerable, and we are having that conversation with Ruth Odera. She is the National Director of the Habitat for Humanity Kenya. Thank you, Ruth, for staying with us.
Thank you.
Yes, before we went to just give our viewers the update on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, you were talking about what decent housing entails. Please go on.
Yes. I was talking about, the definition of decent housing.
Yes.
And the definition of decent housing, there's the UN Habitat definition, and then there is also Habitat for Humanity definition. And we define decent housing as a house that has basic services like water, sanitation, and hygiene. We define decent housing in terms of also the house itself, the structure, whether it has, excuse me, whether it has enough space for the people living in the house. For example, per person is required that per person in a house is required somebody has 3 meters by 3 meters. Yeah, but sometimes you have what we call 10 by 10. You have possibly 10 people staying in that house. That is not decent housing. We also define decent housing in terms of, the distance from the workplace. And I was talking about some people who are living in slums in Nairobi, for example, have to walk like 10 kilometers, possibly to industrial area or other places to, to their workplaces, to their employers. In terms of decency, that is not a decent house. So those entails the definition of decent house.
Right.
For us, we work more in the rural areas and possibly in the peri-urban areas, and sometimes you find informal settlements. First of all, they do not have even titles to some of those lands. Those lands have been, acquired through sometimes invasion. Yeah. You find land and invade it. So even in terms of improvement of that, your environment, it is very difficult as the renter to improve that environment. But the government is doing a lot in terms of, KISIP, if you've heard of KISIP, Kenya Slum Improvement Program. So the government is doing that. It is. I think that is in the area of the government to think through what they can do for the informal settlements. But when we look at the people that are living in the informal settlement, they are the people who are some of them are working. They are working in, for example, industrial area, but their incomes are very low. And the government is already doing, a lot in affordable housing space, constructing houses I think it's not for purchase, not for rental, but for purchase. The government is already doing a lot along that. If you look at the programs like even the Ngara housing, there's some housing in Mombasa, housing in Kisumu. So in terms of informal settlement, we need concerted effort between the government and possibly donors. And I know UN Habitat is doing a lot in urban slum upgrading program. Yeah, but I said that there is a segment called incremental building segment. So the people who are living in urban, some of them were not born here. they have their houses wherever they come from. Okay. So you find people, some have come from Eldoret, some have come from Kisumu, some have come from possibly Kericho, Mombasa, and they are working. So the question is, how can we improve their capacity to build incrementally wherever they are? Because at the end of the day, many people who live in the informal settlement, to them those are houses, they are not homes. Mm-hmm. And their homes is somewhere in the village. If you remember Otieno SM case long time ago, there's the Nyalgunga versus, the house in town. So we need to think of how do we empower those people, that person who is earning 20,000 a day, to access financial services.
You mean 20,000 a month?
20,000 a month.
Yes, you say that way.
To access financial services, mm-hmm. to be able to build at home, in their homes. But again, I think the government has done a lot in terms of devolution, because devolution has taken, a lot of resources back to the urban the counties, mm-hmm. and now it is upon the county governments to see what is the best way to support the low-income households to access, sometimes funding, to be able to build incrementally. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
About access to funding, of course the government launched the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Corporation, mm-hmm. that is trying to lower the cost of mortgages in this country, considering the uptake is really low. Yeah. But even when you look at the offering that the government is giving, someone who earns, say, 20,000 a month, it might be difficult for them mm-hmm. to access this kind of funding. Mm-hmm. How can that funding now be more accessible to these low-income earners? Because it might lock out the low-income earners, just accommodate the middle and upper.
What I know and what I understand from the KMRC is that KMRC lends to institutions. Yes. And the institutions lend to low-income households. The question is, what would be the interest rate for that? But I understand that the role of KMRC is not to go directly and implement financial services to the rural population or to the low-income households. The role of KMRC is to facilitate financial institutions, including banks and microfinance institutions, to get enough funding, or even to have what we call to land ownership. Mm-hmm. There's the aspect of, getting land title is long and cumbersome. Yeah, that is one aspect of land ownership. Mm-hmm. That you have security of occupancy, in the sense that your parent will never throw you away, but they hold the title. Yes. And that also happens in the urban areas. I mean, if you go along Dagoretti, you'll find that they are very rich owners of land, but they own the title. The children do not own the title. So sometimes the parents do not want to give the title or want to subdivide the land, but sometimes it is the long and cumbersome process that is there that makes titling process that make people fear getting titles. Okay. Then there's the aspect of those people who do not own land. Mm-hmm. And we are talking about people who would be squatters, like squatters, immigrants and squatters. Yeah. So for us at Habitat for Humanity, mm-hmm. Land tenure and security of tenure is one of the issues that we tackle. And we work with the county governments to be able to support low-income households and, in our case, vulnerable communities mm-hmm. who have land to get land titles. So we work with the county government, and we work with the county government to support the land titling process. Yeah, so that one we do, and we have done it in Laikipia for mm-hmm. a community of immigrants that received allocation of land and they didn't get land title. So we supported them with the county government of Laikipia to get land, land title.
Okay.
Yeah. But for the people who do not have land at all, the squatters, that one, there's nothing we can do about them. Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah. We can't do anything. Yeah.
When you talk about housing, of course the developers have to come in play.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned about the spacing, and the amenities that need to be there. Nairobi has been notorious for some pictures of, weird-looking houses. The toilet and the kitchen are together. Maybe the space is really small, only a bed can fit. When you step out of the bed, you're outside the house, So what can the construction industry do to support this cause?
You see, when we talk about affordable and adequate housing, the approvals, and then the construction. So there's a miss somewhere. Is it in the plans that are taken for approval? Because the government has got specific laws what constitute affordable housing. Even in residential areas, controlled residential areas, there are specific conditions for a house to be built there. Even in the low-income informal areas, I would want to say, for example, I'm not so sure Dandora, I'm not so sure Umoja. There are specific plans that are approved for those areas. So how come that, when the house is built, it is, even a bed cannot fit into a bedroom? What happens? So there's a lot of cutting, shortcuts in terms of construction, and that's why you see, so many houses collapsing, because the laws are there, the instruments are there, the institutions that are meant to, to check are there, but something happens somewhere, and we end up with those kind of houses. Yeah.
And so how is the Habitat for Humanity doing? What is it doing to remedy this situation?
For urban areas and for urban low income areas, like these are private houses. Yeah. Drinking the water from Nairobi River. And I remember that something happened, and Nairobi River became very clean. When you were passing that roundabout, you'll find that the river was quite clean. So it needs the willpower. It needs political goodwill to do some of these things. Because why was it done? And as soon as he changed dockets, the river came back to green, what it was. So, a lot of things, I think a lot of things need political goodwill, and the government needs to, just have the people like Mutula Kilonzo to, ensure that things are done. For us, at Habitat for Humanity, environment constitutes what is called appropriate housing. Environment is important, and that's why we are talking about even infrastructure, the roads, the environment. And for rural areas, when we construct houses, we also look at the environment. We plant trees, we support environmental initiatives. So for us that is important. But when you look at the urban areas, political goodwill is very key to providing solutions to some of the problems that we have. Yeah.
Right. For women are one of the vulnerable groups. I mean, Kenya has come a long way in terms of women and land rights and land ownership rights, but there is also the issue of the cultural mindset in terms of property ownership, and maybe even when the father of a home dies, the mother is not allowed to inherit the property, culturally, not legally. So what is being done to change the mindset and just change the cultural views on these matters?
Yeah, for in the villages, legally the Constitution, 2010 constitutions allow women and women to inherit land. And but practically, it is very difficult in some environments for women to inherit land because the male relatives do not allow it. So the question is what can be done, or what Habitat for Humanity is doing. Habitat for Humanity has not started implementing initiatives for awareness, but it's something that we plan in our new strategy to be able to create awareness. We are starting advocacy on land issues, and it's something that we are very interested in. Security of tenure for us, and what we are talking about is more of advocacy at village level, at community level, at policy level. Policy, we are allowed to inherit, but culturally sometimes it becomes difficult for the female child or the female member of the household to inherit. So in the next 5 years, you'll be seeing us advocating for some of these issues, especially in areas that we work. Our advocacy starts at the community level because we work with communities, but we also work with the county governments.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Advocacy is very important.
It's very
in
key.
that sector.
It's key for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are talking about matters housing the vulnerable and just how women, children, the disadvantaged, the elderly can be housed in decent houses, so to say. Now we want to take you to the Windsor Golf Club, where the Partnership for Africa Social and Governance Research is releasing, or rather is talking about the Utafiti Sera National Conference on youth employment and how the youth can be plugged into the trade of potato and mango farming. Let's listen in to what's going on there.
Youth can be so captivating and engaging that evidence and policy enthusiasts like myself sometimes struggle to draw the line when to disengage. We want to talk. Please allow me to stop here and take this opportunity to welcome, let me read the names properly. Let me welcome.
So target the negative attitude by the youth towards agriculture. For those of us who have interacted with the Kenya Youth Agribusiness Strategy 2018-2022, top amongst the challenges that was addressed in that Kenya Youth Agribusiness Strategy, you can get it online. Top amongst those challenges was the negative perceptions and attitude towards agriculture by the youth. So we thought it wise that some of the interventions that we proposed was reintroducing agriculture as a subject in primary schools, and also reintroducing the clubs in primary schools. We are talking of catching them young at that tender age. Wahenga walinena kwamba mtoto mleavyo ndivyo akavyo, so that later on in life you don't come back and run what you call helter-skelter, struggling to convince the youth to come back to agriculture. So we thought it wise that we reintroduce those clubs, revive them, and rebrand them. There are several components of the revived 4K clubs. If you look at our website, the 4K Club of Kenya website, you can check it and you'll be able to see the 4K Club manual that we developed. It brings out those issues of reviving and rebranding of those clubs to make them more attractive, so that we're able to sustain those clubs. And as we're talking now, there's a directive to all primary schools that they must establish the 4K clubs. Both public and private primary schools have been directed to establish those clubs. And you can imagine the multiply effect if all those primary schools have those clubs in place, and they have those active clubs, and the kids are members of those clubs. As they grow up, as they come out of those primary schools, they move to the secondary schools where we have the young farmers clubs, and then they finally get out of school, what you call the out of school youth. You can imagine the impact. We already have a youth which is sensitized, socialized at that tender age, to be able to appreciate and acknowledge that there are a lot of opportunities in the agriculture sector. And I'm sure most of us in our families, for those of us who have families, you ask your kids what they wish to be when they grow up, and I'm sure most of us, watoto wanasema, I want to be an engineer, a pilot, an ICT, blah, blah. None of them, I'm sure, talk of being agripreneurs or agriculture or farmers for that matter. How many of us chose at that tender age to become farmers? I'm sure none, or if any few. You came across some opportunities later on in life and decided that probably I would try it out and make money out of farming. But we are talking of catching them young at that tender age so that we're able to address that negative perception and attitude towards agriculture. So thank you so much, and I trust and believe that we're going to have a fruitful deliberation of this over these 2 days, and at the end of it, I'm sure we are going to have a good way forward. Thank you, Dr. Dame. Thank you, my colleagues from PSDR, Alternatives Africa, and government representatives. Thank you so much, and wish you a fruitful deliberation over these 2 days. Thank you, and God bless.
Well, that is coming to us from the Windsor Golf Club, and it is the Utafiti Sera Conference by the PASGR, and it's just focusing on how the youth are supposed to get employment or open up opportunities for the youth in the agriculture sector, with the mindset of the youth against agriculture really being quite a point of concern there. The government bringing back the 4K clubs in schools to just ensure that the young people are introduced early to agriculture and that they can maybe venture into agriculture in their adulthood. Of course, our reporter Hibak Said is on the ground there, and she will be bringing us that report in full in our subsequent bulletins. Here in studio, we are with Ruth Odera. She is the National Director of the Habitat for Humanity Kenya, and we have been talking about matters housing the vulnerable. Thank you, Ruth, for staying with us.
Thank you.
Ruth, this year the Habitat for Humanity turns 40.
What we've done, we are drilling boreholes among the community members in the communities where we work. So we've drilled boreholes. We've repaired water points. Right now we are going to Nyando area, Lower Nyando, Kochogo location, to stem the floods, because all these have to do with the environment where the communities work. Mm-hmm. We also, construct schools and classrooms, especially in communities where people are very poor, like, in Laikipia, there's an area called Bombo area where we have constructed classrooms. And then what I told you, we support financial institutions to develop housing microfinance products, to be able to give loans to economically active. We also construct houses. So to come back to your question, what is the impact and what is our outreach? We have reached over 100,000 households with our activities, and this is water, sanitation, construction of homes. Over 100,000 people we have reached in the communities where we have operated. We've worked with about 250 communities to do that, and this year now we are celebrating our 40th anniversary.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. And we want to bring everybody together to celebrate with us, because housing for low-income households is not spotlighted. When people talk about housing, they are talking about mortgage. Mm-hmm. They forget that there are people who don't have mortgage and also living in houses, however bad those houses are. Mm. Yeah. So we've worked with low-income households within the communities where we operate. We've used donor funds to construct houses, to drill boreholes, to do what we are doing. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, We worked with our donors to, train communities, especially low-income, vulnerable communities. We gave them hand wash sessions. We trained them on COVID. We trained them on vaccination. We were creating awareness on vaccinations, but mainly for very low-income households. So our impact is outside there. Mm-hmm. It is great. We are beating our own drums, as we say, mm-hmm. Just to celebrate, the impact that we have created. And, impact sometimes is not just in numbers. Impact is also very personal. If, for example, we have a child-headed household in Homa Bay that we built for a house. And, his 3 or 4 other siblings. Now, we built 2-bedroom houses, mm-hmm. With water and toilets and tanks, mm-hmm. water tanks with a complete rain harvesting system. Nice. Imagine the impact that we have in the family, mm-hmm. in the lives of those people. Mm-hmm. So the impact might be small in terms of the outreach, because the housing need is great outside there. Mm. But in terms of impact, in terms of what goes into the heart,
yes.
It's very important. Yeah. And in Homa Bay also, I remember, a vulnerable person, a disabled person married to a disabled person. Mm-hmm. So nobody can carry each other can carry the other one because they can't walk. Mm-hmm. But they have children. And they don't have houses. If you go to the house, you can see the roof. Mm. Imagine the kind of impact a house has in the minds of those people.
Touching them.
The community starts seeing them. Even their self-esteem, mm-hmm. Rises. Right. Even the things that they were not able to do, they start doing. Mm-hmm. That is the much impact that we make within the communities. Yeah,
mm-hmm. That is very important, and mm-hmm. it's great that you've been touching lives for the past 40 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why are you asking for trouble? Why do you keep trying to ruin everything?
You really think what we have right now is real happiness?
Would you please wake up? Just go out into the world and find someone else.
Jenny, if you leave me, I'll die right away.
Hey! It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is your son's having an affair with another woman. And what's more, your daughter-in-law is covering it up for him.
What?
Let me tell you. Jack will be with me sooner or later. I will never give up on him. Pity. You're to blame here for not having a baby.
You're completely shameless. You've got no shame at all.
As long as I get to see you, I don't care what anyone else thinks.
You're disgusting.
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
Look, I know you don't want anything to do with the company. But just in case you do, I totally understand, because I will do
it. We meet tonight? Yes, absolutely. No, we can't go on like this.
I don't want your pity. I want nothing. Just leave me alone and don't come back here ever. I don't want to see you again. I don't want to see anybody. Why don't you get it?
I don't want our relationship to be ruined. I don't want to lose a son. I accept your plans to marry Mariella.
Wait, Dad, are you serious?
Yes, absolutely.
In that case, all right. I guess we agreed on something for the first time. I never thought it's possible.
Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Many thanks for staying with BizCheck here on KBC Channel 1. My name is Betty Kiptum. Now, in the second hour of this particular program, we shall be having a conversation on matters agriculture and how to ensure that the young people are being integrated into the agriculture ecosystem. To have this conversation is Dr. Beatrice Muganda. She is the director at the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. I got that right?
Yes.
Karibu sana, and thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Karibu. Could you just give us some statistics of how the agriculture sector is looking in terms of the youth, maybe?
So, starting at the African level, we have 37% youth population. And of this, 60% are unemployed. And then when you come down to Kenya, we have about 47.6 million Kenyans, of which about 30 million are youth. The unemployment rate in Kenya right now is about 9.3%. And of this, 18.3% are unemployed. So to think that from our research, we can leverage about 3.2 million jobs from the mango and another 3.2 million jobs from the potato sectors. It's really amazing to think that such opportunities are not being adequately exploited. Yes.
Those are quite some interesting numbers, considering the unemployment and the potential that these sectors have to employ these people. Where is the gap?
So the gap really, there are many gaps. So first of all, we think about the perception, the poor attitude towards agriculture. Youth are not
the farmer to make their venture profitable and attractive eventually to the young people.
First of all, support research. Research into better seeds, because value addition has to be informed by research. And then strengthen the extension services. And that is the linkage between the researcher and the extension officers who will then take this information to the farmer. So there has been a disconnect there, and we need to strengthen this area. So with this kind of intervention, and if it is we have policies, but it's one thing to have those policies, it's another thing to have them implemented. And also in these policies, there are gaps, because when the policies were being set, for example, we were not really deeply embedded in the digital era right now. Right now, there are many opportunities for digitization. So these have to be strengthened, and also mechanisms of just how we really support the youth to then exploit these opportunities. And then there's the process of certifying seeds. The issue about, marketing of our potato because of the certification. So the process is lengthy, and many of the youth do not even have the information. So again, how can we support youth to access information on these policies, and even support them to find ways and means of working in a manner that's consistent with the policy expectation? Yes.
Right. For the young people, my previous guest was saying that land ownership is mostly, the titling is held by the parents.
Yes.
The young people are still struggling to, find their footing.
Yes.
So the land tenure system in this country.
Yes.
There's the land ownership, there's the small pieces of land that probably do not support the large scale kind of farming.
Yes.
How can we sort out this mess? Because land issues in this country are quite a mess.
Yes, that's a big one. Systemic problems can be difficult to address, but then they also present opportunities. Opportunities, for example, for collaboration. If youth come together and form cooperatives, they can source land and undertake agriculture on that piece of land. It's also got something to do with access to credit. They can lease the land, and it will help them with the farming.
It will help them with the farming, of course.
Yeah.
So for young people, coming together, as you've mentioned, is a very important thing.
Yes.
Is there anything specific that is being done to ensure that these resources, because the youth have resources, they have the skills, some of them have the income and others don't. So when they come together, they pull all these resources together.
Yes.
Is there something that is being done to make sure that young people are coming together, maybe forming even cooperatives and venturing into agriculture?
Yes.
There are some platforms, maybe apps or websites that have come up, to support this sector. What more can be done?
So again, there's the training. It's a necessary input because they need the skills to work actively in this tech world. They need also to be linked to some of these farms that are developing these apps like the iHub. And so that disconnect has to be addressed. But increasingly, of course, youth are getting involved, but we need to share more information and we need to link them more to these trainings and the job opportunities. Yeah.
Well, we are talking about the agriculture value chain, how to make sure that the young people are investing or involving themselves in agriculture across the value chain. And we are having this conversation with Dr. Beatrice Muganda. She's the director in charge of the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. Remember, you can get in touch with us on KBC at KBC Channel 1 on Twitter. At Betty Kiptum is my Twitter handle. Tell us, what is your experience? Have you ventured into agriculture as a young person? What is stopping you from venturing into it if you haven't? And if you have, what has your experience been? Did you make money? Did you lose money? How did it go for you? And maybe what questions would you have for Dr. Muganda? Daktari, let's talk about the access to credit. For young people, they'll go maybe to the bank needs collateral.
Yes.
They don't have collateral. All they have is themselves and the skills that they have.
Yes.
So for young people, where can they go to access credit that will support them in venturing into agriculture?
We've come up with some innovative solutions like the table banking, whereby they need very low investments, and from what they're collecting every week, they can put some money together. And eventually, this money will grow and it can access them credit. But also collateral in terms of youth coming together and supporting each other. For example, in a cooperative society, you just need to sign off as a guarantor and you can access funds. So let them start small and then build the kind of reserves that will enable them to access big credit from the bank. Yes.
Most of the farms in this country are in the rural areas, of course. You know?
Yes.
So it means the county governments have a great role to play when it comes to adding value to the agriculture value chain.
Yes.
So what is that role that they need to play?
County governments have established their ministries of agriculture, and mostly they are providing farm inputs. So for the value chain to grow and to be strengthened, they must provide goods of certain quality. I'm not saying that the inputs are not of high quality, but they must check that they're getting the products of the highest quality, the inputs of the highest quality to provide to the farmers. So that would be the beginning point. And of course also helping them to access the markets. So that time is not lost. And crops destroyed, for example, the post-harvest losses have to be arrested at the right time. And here also the county government can play a role. Yes.
How about on training?
If it's like something like milk, where these products can be at least kept to avoid post-market loss before they are then shipped to the market. Yes.
When you mentioned about research,
yes,
I remembered that the other day there was an online war, with the fast food chain KFC, over their potato varieties and how they have to import.
Yes.
Yet there are farmers in Kenya who are throwing away potatoes because they don't have the market. And what can you say can be done to make sure that we have the right varieties for the market that is there?
So there's research going on by, cultural universities like Egerton, but when this technology comes out, how it's used to produce the kind of quality of seed potatoes that we need, there is a problem in terms of volume. Like I said, only 5% of the seeds of the right quality required are available. So there's capacity to utilize this technology to produce more seed potatoes to serve the market. So it is an area for intervention by the private sector as well. And that's why for PASGA, we have brought together a variety of stakeholders. And one of the things that we'll be doing is exploring opportunities for multi-stakeholder partnerships and discussing effective business models. And so this is one area that can also be addressed. How can the private sector come in to use this technology that is produced by research organizations, by universities, to serve the market needs?
The Kenyan agriculture products.
Yes.
Some have been flagged for not meeting the international standards, when it comes to accessing the export market.
Yes.
So we have been banned. I think our avocados were banned some time ago from being exported because we did not meet that particular standard that had been set. So what will go into ensuring that we are producing quality, not just for the local market, but also for the international market where there is the big money?
Standards have been laid down, and obviously to follow these standards requires some heavy investment that may not be available, especially for the youth and for the smallholder farmers. So the big question is, while we have these standards, how can we then get partnerships, stakeholders, interventions, especially from the private sector, coming in to support the youth to meet these standards? Because once those standards are met, then there will not be a problem of accessing the market. Yeah.
Right. And there's the issue of when you're adding value to these products.
Yes.
Ensuring that the end product is competitive in the market is another thing.
Yes.
So that means the input costs, the production costs, and that is a song that manufacturers have been singing, for quite some time, that the production cost in this country is too high, such that goods that have been imported are cheaper than goods produced locally.
Yes.
What does the government need to do to make our goods more competitive, both locally and internationally?
They should consider subsidies. And of course, the issue of taxation is usually very sensitive. But that's one area. I mean, if you think about the cost of fuel and how much tax is levied.
A little bit, stay with us.
The Kenya Bureau of Standards is at the center of Kenya's industrialization agenda. The standards body is being reformed to realign it with the new manufacturing realities. Where are we in this reform agenda?
We have been progressing, making significant progress in terms of automation, which is reducing the human interface between how we interact. And that is one of the areas where we have seen that the best we can be able to achieve is when we have automation.
This week on Inside Garment, I talked to the Managing Director of Kenya Bureau of Standards, Lieutenant Colonel, retired Bernard Njeraine, on what the body is doing and what is the future of KEBS under the new manufacturing agenda. Watch the interview right here on KBC Channel 1.
Chini ya uongozi wa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali imewekeza vilivyo katika sekta ya kilimo ili kuongeza uzalishaji chakula na pia kulinda mapato ya wakulima. Wiki hii kwenye Project 254.
My administration is currently reforming the sector by increasing output and productivity, boosting incomes in agribusiness, and ensuring household resilience and food security.
Ilikuwa sisi na njaa, lakini wakati Uhuru alikuja, sisi nasema asante kwa sababu hii mtu anapatia maji ya irrigation.
Tunalima mchele na inatusaidia. Tunaweza kusomesha watoto, tunaweza kukaa kama mkulima na kaa kama mfanyabiashara mwingine. Hatuna tofauti sana. Sasa tunaona maisha sasa ni mepesi.
Thank you for watching BizCheck this morning. We have been having a conversation on matters agriculture and the young people. And Dr. Beatrice Muganda, the Director of Partnership for African Social and Governance Research, is here with us in studio. Dr. Muganda, could you just take us through what industries that the young people can look at in terms of providing value, the skills they can offer in agriculture?
Yes, again, just as background, if you look at the research that we undertook, we get this expert knowledge to add value into what we are selling.
Okay, we shall be answering that question in a bit. Allow me to cut you short.
Okay.
We'd like to take you to the official opening of the TVET Authority in the Western region. Let's listen in to what is happening there.
Accreditation of programs, institutions, and trainers. That is our mandate, to ensure that institutions are accredited, to ensure that there is quality in the institutions. And as our DJ has remarked, I want to encourage the members present here that you are our eye on the ground. Please let us not allow mushrooming of institutions which are not accredited. They'll be doing a lot of disservice from us, or to us, or to the Kenyan citizen. TVETA might not be everywhere as much as we are striving and trying to put regional offices to bring closer services to the citizens. We may not be everywhere. But you accredited institution, would you want competition from a non-accredited institution? Please, you are our eye on the ground, and let us work together to make sure that we give the Kenyan child the quality services that they deserve. TVET Authority has made great strides since its inception in 2014. The current strategic plan outlines opening of regional offices as one of the priority areas, which is in line with the Constitution of Kenya 2010, on ensuring reasonable access to our services to all parts of our republic. So far, TVETA has established 3 regional offices in Mombasa, Eldoret, and Kisumu to serve the Coast, North Rift, and Western regions, respectively. We are just progressing. We are not yet there. And it is our aspiration, Madam PS, that each and every county has at least a TVETA office, so that we bring services close to the people. That is our aspiration. So, Madam PS, this is part of our strategic thinking. Given facilities, given finances, we should achieve this aim, because as we operate now, I'm trying to imagine people who've come all the way from Bita. Anybody from down there? Migori? Those areas? Thank you. They have come all the way, and this is the region office that is going to serve people from that direction. And people coming from the border, Busia has somebody coming from Malaga? Yes, Madam PS. So this facility, we appreciate the government, we appreciate the Ministry of Education for giving us an opportunity to expand our offices, to increase our regional offices. However, we request that given more facilities, we should reach our members as close as possible. Western region does not only enjoy the advantage of its proximity to our neighboring countries, Uganda and Tanzania, but it is also home to Lake Victoria. With these advantages and endowment of an si lazima mtoto akuzwe, na ikiwa atatunzwa akuzwe, si lazima apewe maziwa. Naam, Madam PS, we need facilities, both physical facilities and personnel in this office, so that it can improve and enhance services to people of this region. The role played by vocational training centers in the provision of the much-needed skills that propels our country towards the realization of its development goals cannot be overemphasized. We appreciate the role played by the county governments in the provision of TVET. As we exercise our functions, we endeavor to promote mutual working relationship with the county governments in the region to ensure improved quality of training in our institutions. I want to take this opportunity again to thank the county government of Kisumu, which is represented here, and also the TVET heads of institutions represented here, and the people on the ground. That thank you so much to making sure that our programs are a success. And on this regard, the success of the Big Four agenda depends on the proactiveness of the TVET institutions within the regions. We depend on you so much to ensure that there is food security. Otherwise, why should the government be spending so much money on the training institutions if we do not innovate, if we do not invent, so that we import food from outside? Do we lack resources?
Well, that is Professor Florence Indede. She is the chair of the Technical Vocational Education Training Authority Board, and she is speaking at the official opening of the TVET Authority Western Regional Office. Of course, she said that the TVET Authority is looking to have an office in all 47 counties. The TVET sector very important to ensure that the young people have the skills they need to be independent in terms of maybe opening businesses, using their skills and supporting Kenya's economy. In studio, we are with Dr. Beatrice Muganda, the Director of the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research, and we are talking about matters agriculture and youth. And of course, we were talking a little bit earlier about the training part of it and how important institutions such as the TVET institutions, you know, are important in this sector, right?
Yes.
Before we went there, we were talking about the branding branding of Kenyan products to make sure that they catch the eye of the buyer, you know, and that they are competitive out there. Please go on.
Yes, thank you. And I had indicated that part of the work we are doing at PASGA with partners, and specifically in this conference, is to leverage on partnerships with private sector, because communication is big business in the private sector. And yes, we do have very that can come out. We have amazing graphic designers who can really add value to the work that is being done in the agricultural sector, in the mango and potato value chains. However, in terms of branding outside of Kenya, how many of our products really have hit the international market? Tea is doing very well because it's well branded. So I think it's a process. It begins with getting the product certified for the export market, and then after that, working very closely with the Kenya Export Production and Branding Agency to get the message out there. So for example, if you brand ugali very well and advertise it on international media, I don't know how that would leverage. Research is wide. It cuts across all the sectors. So in partnership, for example, in this research, we partnered with KABE and undertook research in youth employment creation, in agribusiness and agro-processing in Kenya. And so the findings that are coming out of this will inform interventions that improve the outcomes from the agricultural sector. For example, through the engagement where we've brought together a variety of interest groups, youth, private sector and public sector to engage. Coming out of this, we will have formed or at least catalyzed multi-stakeholder partnerships that take these discussions to the next level and form the kind of partnerships we require to access credit, for example, or to access the right technology, or to just improve productivity in agriculture. Coming out of this also, we will have greater interlinkages between the value chains. And this is what is needed again to improve income into this sector. And then, most importantly, like I said, we produce evidence and share with policy actors and other stakeholders to inform policy. Again, the discussions that are going on in the conference, again, they are going to provide inputs for reviewing, revising, and strengthening regulatory and policy frameworks in the agriculture and agribusiness industry. Yes.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I'll give you 30 seconds to give us your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. It has really been a good opportunity coming to talk about an issue that is very close to our hearts, because agriculture feeds us. So my message to the youth is there's great opportunity in agriculture. 3.2 million jobs in mango alone, 3.2 million jobs in potato alone. Please start today thinking about an idea that you can develop in the agriculture industry. Let us work together to lift this country, but also to lift you as an individual. This opportunity is great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
I have been speaking with Dr. Beatrice Muganda. She is the Director of the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. We have talked at length on matters agriculture and the young people. And her message is, do not be afraid. Just come up with an idea and start implementing it. The market is ready for you. Thank you very much for watching BizCheck. My name is Betty Kiptum. Khalid Abdullahi is up next with the latest in Kurunzi. Well, do have yourself a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.
The Kenya Bureau.
Why are you asking for trouble? Why do you keep trying to ruin everything?
You really think what we have right now is real happiness?
Would you please wake up? Just go out into the world and find someone else.
Jenny, if you leave me, I'll die right away.
Hey! It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is your son's having an affair with another woman. And what's more, your daughter-in-law is covering it up for him.
What?
Let me tell you. Jack will be with me sooner or later. I will never give up on him. Pity. You're to blame here for not having a baby.
You're completely shameless. You've got no shame at all.
As long as I get to see you, I don't care what anyone else thinks.
You're disgusting.
Ahlan wa sahlan, mnundo hiyo ni ishara tosha kwamba Kurunzi Mashinani inangoa nanga sasa hivi, ambapo ni siku ya Alhamisi tarehe 24 mwezi Februari mwaka 2022, wakati mwingine mwafaka wa kukuletea wewe mtazamaji taarifa za Kurunzi Mashinani. Kumbuka wanahabari wetu wamekita kambi katika maeneo tofauti kukuletea taarifa kadri zinapojiri. Mimi ni Khalid Abdullahi, karibu. Mtazamaji, wadau wa elimu huko Mandera wanahimiza uajiri wa walimu kutoka eneo hilo ili kushughulikia tatizo la walimu wakati wa kongamano lililohudhuriwa na walimu wakuu na wadau wengine wa elimu. Tume ya TSC ilihimiza kupunguza alama ya kujiunga na vyuo vya mafunzo ya walimu hadi D- ili kutatua tatizo la uhapo wa walimu. Na mtazamaji, naambiwa wenye mashua kisiwani Amu, kaunti ya Lamu, wanalalamika kuhusu kupungua kwa mapato yao kufuatia upepo mkali unaovuma baharini. Wenye mashua hizo wakiwemo manahodha na utingo wanasema wamekosa pesa za kukimu familia zao. Na mtazamaji, wazazi na walimu wamehimizwa kuhimiza mtindo wa kusoma miongoni mwa wanafunzi wa chekechea. Kwa mujibu wa mwandishi vitabu mashuhuri na mtayarishaji filamu Kiniman, hatua hii itasaidia wanafunzi hao kuwajibika katika maisha yao ya usoni. Aidha, baadhi ya waandishi vitabu wa humu nchini wameanza kuhimiza usomaji kupitia vitabu vya hadithi vya watoto, hususan kuhusu wanyamapori na mazingira.
Katika shule ya Regis iliyoko mtaa wa Runda katika kaunti ya Nairobi, tunawapata wanafunzi wakiendelea na masomo yao ya mtaala mpya wa CBC. Kiniman ambaye ni mwandishi wa vitabu mashuhuri amewatembelea wanafunzi wa shule hii huku akiwapa maarifa ya hadithi na uhariri wa vitabu.
They can work with scientists. They can make their own observations. They can make their own reports. They can have an effect.
Wanafunzi hao wana hamu kubwa ya kujua mengi.
It's very inspiring so that we learn about wildlife conservation, which is something that we've heard of before, but it's not, to us, it's not brought up very seriously. It's not, we have to be told again and again to know that when you see trash on the road, you have to pick it up so that we can inform the future generations that global warming and treating wildlife badly is not right.
Kulingana na mwandishi huyu, uandishi na utengenezaji filamu umekuwa maarufu nchini.
We've been talking about this for 30 years and we've done nothing with our young children, and now we have something that they can hold and read and discuss and learn from. And I see from this workshop right here, the interest level is extremely high. These kids know a lot more than we think they do about the state of the planet.
Na kuchochea mtindo wa kuvisoma vitabu, wachapishaji vitabu wa Story Moja wamezindua vitabu kwa jina Sunday World Detective Series vinavyolenga kuyalinda mazingira.
Today we're here because there's a book launch for wildlife detectives, the first ever in the world, and it's African wildlife detectives, and it's about wildlife conservation.
It's meant to drive the reading culture from within, not for the teacher to demand that the child buys this book or for a parent to be the one to choose it, but for the children themselves to desire this book.
Katika awamu ya kwanza ya vitabu hivi wanazingatia kasa, ambao ni wanyama walio kwenye hatari ya kuangamizwa katika eneo la pwani ya Kenya.
So today we were launching the first title of a book series we'll have. It's called Sudef Wildlife Detectives Series, and this is the first ever wildlife detectives fiction book series set in Africa.
Kudumisha kutolewa kwa vitabu kwa kizazi hiki ni dhahiri kwamba mazingira yatalindwa katika siku za usoni. Ruth Wamboi nikiripotia Kurunzi Mashinani.
Na mtazamaji, sasa tuelekee moja kwa moja kule Kisumu ambapo katibu katika wizara inayohusiana na masuala ya kiufundi Margaret Mwakima amefungua vyuo ama ofisi za vyuo vya kiufundi katika maeneo ile ya magharibi. Tupate kusikiana ana nini ya kutuambia.
I urge you all TVET providers to visit the office for consultation on all issues relating to TVET accreditation. The general public is also encouraged to confirm accreditation status of institutions from this office before commencing training. What we are requiring out the Kisumu National Polytechnic to launch another center of excellence for the blue economy. Through what we call the SIFA project that is funded by NEPAD. Already the grounds have been identified. We are at a very advanced stage with the discussions with the NEPAD and the African Union Commission, so that Kisumu National Polytechnic now becomes another regional center of excellence for the blue economy. And in this particular case, we'll therefore take advantage of the lake and see how best our skills development can revolve around the economic activities within the lake. We need to see the youth being able to create and also repair boats. They should also get into the technology of even ship production and maintenance as well as repairs. And they should also get into aquaculture, mariculture, as well as fish farming. There's a lot to do within this lake, and we should now take advantage so that as this Center of Excellence comes on board, then our youth can already get engaged and contribute to their own livelihoods, but also contribute to the social development of this county and the country in general. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm aware that implementation of competence-based education and training has placed greater demands to our institutional resources. Madam Chair, as you rightly put it, it is critical that our young ones are able to be taught on how to work with their hands. An additional skill, one or two, is very key progressively, especially from how we are seeing our country developing. And so therefore, the CBC curriculum is here to stay, and for us, we are ready to be able now to take them to the competence-based education and training, of which as TVET institutions we always have done, because that is what we have always been known to do. So common strains in this region, as well as other parts of the country, in reference to our CBET as well as our TVET training and development. One of them, of course, is inadequate training facilities, which include sanitation facilities. So our county government within this county, we are requesting for more of these sanitation facilities, which can also now enable our trainees to use them for their practical training. Because as you were told yesterday by the Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, one of those areas that we'll be proud of as CBET to train on, because each one of us since morning must have used such facility, is for us to ensure our sanitation facilities, our ablution blocks, and all that which requires the necessary.
Naam, mtazamaji, huyo ni katibu ambaye amefungua afisi za vyuo vya kiufundi katika kaunti ya Kisumu, akisema kuwa malalamishi yote na maswali yote kuhusiana na masuala ya vyuo vya kifundi yatakuwa yataelekezwa kule katika afisi hiyo mpya imefunguliwa kale. Na pia amesema kwa mtaala mpya CBC iko hapa kuendelea. Ni taarifa ambayo mwanahabari mwenzangu Wycliffe Okech amelivalia njuga na tupatia taarifa hiyo kwa kina hapo baadaye. Tukisonga mbele, Baraza Kuu la Kanisa la African Independent Pentecostal Church of Kenya limemteua Daktari David Kiruthi Gatimu kuwa askofu mkuu
gaidi mwaka wa 2014. Hata hivyo, kamishna wa kaunti ya Mandera Onesmus Kiatha amesema serikali imeimarisha usalama wa walimu wote, ambapo baadhi ya walimu wanaishi kwenye kambi za maafisa wa usalama na hivyo hakuna lolote la kuhofia.
If you go to Warangara, some of them in the morning they move from the camps, they go to teach, and then they come back in the evening. And we are willing to accommodate one another. So I want to assure you we will go out of our way to ensure that we protect this vital human resource.
Naye naibu gavana wa Mandera Mohamed Arai anapendekeza walimu wote wanaostaafu wapewe kandarasi ya miaka 5 ili kuziba ombwe la uhaba wa walimu.
But the commission, because of the situation of our staffing, has extended their contract to this number of years instead of a break of service here in between.
Let us work collectively in order to ensure that we, the Mandera people, we realize our goals, and we also compete competitively, nationally and internationally. Let us not cry for the lower grades. Let us aim for the best grades in this country.
Jamlik Mituri ambaye ni mwenyekiti wa tume ya TSC amesema tume hiyo inanuia kusawazisha idadi ya walimu katika kaunti zote humu nchini.
The commission will continue to collaborate with state and non-state actors in addressing areas of mutual interest such as governance and leadership, civic education and children's rights. This partnership will ultimately